Sudden cardiac arrest prevention training.
You know those news stories about kids who suddenly collapse? That's a real thing. It's called sudden cardiac arrest. It's caused by an undetected heart condition. I should know. I had one. So listen up. This is one of the most important pages in your playbook.
One of the biggest responsibilities for coaches and sports officials is to keep young athletes safe.
And considering sudden cardiac arrest is the #1 killer of student athletes, this training could one day help you save a life.
Thank you for your willingness to protect young hearts. Let's get started. Sudden cardiac arrest, or SCA, is a life-threatening emergency that occurs when the heart suddenly stops beating.
When SCA happens, the person stops breathing. They may gasp or shake as if having a seizure, but their heart has stopped, which means they will die if they don't get help right away.
My heart? It's all good. It's an injury or a concussion that would keep me out of the game.
Sudden cardiac arrest is the #1 killer of student athletes and the leading cause of death on school campuses. Studies show 1 in 300 has an undetected heart condition that puts them at risk. Reports show that thousands of young people are lost each year.
Sadly, the survival rate for SCA victims has remained under 10% for the last 3 decades. The goal of this training is to help you create a culture of prevention in your program, so kids' hearts are protected and safe to play.
Sudden cardiac arrest and a heart attack are not the same. In the simplest terms, a heart attack is a plumbing problem, when blockage to the coronary arteries interrupts blood flow to the heart. A heart attack typically occurs over the age of 35, and in most cases the victim is responsive and breathing.
A cardiac arrest is an electrical problem caused by a heart abnormality people are born with or one develops as they grow. SCA can be triggered by a virus in the heart or by a hard blow to the chest, for example, from a ball or a hit that interrupts the heart rhythm. Sudden cardiac arrest can occur at any age, even in seemingly healthy youth. Victims are unresponsive and not breathing, so immediate intervention is critical.
Yeah, I fainted last summer. It was really hot, so I figured I just needed to drink more water.
While youth can suddenly collapse and go into cardiac arrest without warning, research shows that more than half of those stricken have prior symptoms, sometimes days, weeks, or months before, sometimes just seconds. Let's take a look at potential warning signs you can look for. Fainting, while often attributed to heat, dehydration, or low blood sugar, is also the #1 warning sign of a potential heart condition. Sometimes dizziness or lightheadedness can happen prior to fainting. While not always cardiac related, fainting that includes a sudden collapse without warning, especially during or after exercise or exertion, needs follow-up. Youth who faint should be referred back to a licensed medical practitioner to be re-cleared to play. In fact, in some states, it is the law to remove student athletes from play to be re-cleared if they faint or exhibit other symptoms that appear to be cardiac related. It's important parents ask their medical practitioner for follow-up diagnostic testing to check their child's heart, such as an electrocardiogram, also known as an EKG or ECG, or echocardiogram, also known as an echo. Chest pain and heart palpitations, or irregular heartbeats, are concerning when they occur together or each individually with exertion or are accompanied by fainting or decreased endurance. Other possible symptoms include excessive shortness of breath during exercise or excessive unexpected fatigue during or after exercise.
Think of it this way. As youth participate in athletic activity and train regularly, their bodies should be getting stronger. If they continue to struggle throughout the season, it makes sense to report that to a parent or guardian for follow-up with a medical practitioner. And while you can't control what goes on outside of your sports program, it is also important to know that youth who have family history of heart conditions are at a greater risk of having one too. Since you may encounter many siblings as they age into your program, keep in mind that families should screen all members when one experiences any of the warning signs. It is also important to let youth know that the use of illegal drugs or misuse of prescription drugs and inhalants, plus the consumption of energy drinks, diet pills, or performance-enhancing supplements can impact their heart.
Out of breath, a racing heart, feeling dizzy, Everyone feels that way after a tough practice. I'm not going to look stupid by complaining.
The reality is that we live in a very competitive world, and kids are encouraged daily to rise to the challenge. Young people often don't tell adults if they experience symptoms, and adults often urge kids to play hard.
Young athletes, and often their parents, don't want to jeopardize their playing time, so they may avoid telling adults in hopes that their symptoms just go away.
Kids may be embarrassed that they can't keep up, thinking they're out of shape and just need to train harder. Some training programs penalize the whole team when one person can't keep up, and kids don't want to be that one person.
Or kids have spoken up but have been told it's something else, such as asthma or anxiety, so they think the issue has already been addressed when it still persists.
But the biggest contributor to why kids don't speak up is because nobody asks them how they feel, or specifically if they've experienced any of the previously mentioned warning signs. Urge sports clearance packets and pre-participation physical forms to be completed thoughtfully. No one should just check the box year after year. Forms should be completed by parents and youth together, so kids are part of the discussion about symptoms they may have experienced and never mentioned, and about any family members with heart disease. Be familiar with warning signs that occur or reoccur, and let parents or guardians know. Encourage players to report any symptoms, and be supportive of each other if they notice symptoms in their friends and teammates.
Okay, I get it. But if it happens, we just call 911, right?
When a youth suddenly collapses, it can be a very scary and confusing situation for everyone. That's why having a written and well-practiced emergency action plan is critical. Because seemingly healthy youth aren't expected to have their heart stop, sudden cardiac arrest is sometimes perceived as fainting, a seizure, or just being knocked out. But in fact, most exercise-related collapses are due to sudden cardiac arrest. The first step is to recognize that when someone suddenly collapses and is unresponsive, they are likely not breathing, so there is no time to waste. And don't let an SCA victim who is gasping, gurgling, or having seizure-like activity fool you. They're still not breathing, which means you have to react quickly.
As a part of your training, you'll become CPR and AED certified. But it's important to remember that the best way to save a sudden cardiac arrest victim is to create a culture of prevention throughout your sports community, so everyone is prepared to save a life. Just like stop, drop, and roll, just say no, and don't drink and drive, call push shock is an easy way to remind players, parents, coaches, officials, and bystanders what to do in a cardiac emergency. Given every minute's delay in providing emergency intervention decreases the chances of survival by 10%, calling 911 is just not enough, especially in rural areas. Average EMS arrival times can be up to 13 minutes. That's just too long for someone with a stopped heart. Don't wait for EMS to arrive. Start hands-only CPR immediately. Studies show that kids as young as 12 can deliver quality CPR, so make it a priority to show them how. You don't have to be certified to give CPR. In fact, any bystander can triple an SCA victim's chance of survival. That's why this conversation is also important to share at parent-team meetings, because parents often attend games and practices. As you know, hands-only CPR consists of immediately delivering chest compressions. Push hard and fast in the center of the chest to the beat of a fast song, such as Staying Alive. About 100 to 120 compressions per minute. A good way to engage your athletes is to pick a team song with a beat that matches Staying Alive, so everyone is prepared.
Charging. Shock advised.
An AED? I'm not even sure where one is, or what it is.
While not all sports organizations have access to an automated external defibrillator, or AED, if you do, it's critical to retrieve it immediately when someone suddenly collapses, which means your sports community needs to know what it is and where it is. CPR is a critical step in the cardiac chain of survival because it is a bridge to life that keeps oxygenated blood circulating to vital organs until a shock can be delivered by an AED to restart a heart in cardiac arrest. Studies show that the sooner CPR begins and an AED is used, the survival rate is significantly higher, nearly 90%. That's why it makes sense to have a written and well-practiced cardiac emergency response plan that involves administrators, coaches, officials, parents, and youth athletes.
I don't think we're allowed to use an AED, are we?
Most people don't realize that AEDs were designed for anyone to use. Consider the facts and share them with your team. AEDs should always be accessible to the public. That's what they're designed for. And when a heart is stopped, you can significantly increase a victim's chance of survival when you use an AED. You don't have to be trained. It guides you with step-by-step audio-visual instructions. Studies show even kids can do it with minimal instruction. You're not deciding if a person needs a shock. The device does it for you, so you can never hurt a person by mistake. And you aren't liable for using an AED to help someone.
Sure, advising that a young person needs to get re-cleared to play and therefore miss a game, or enacting additional safety protocols on your team may seem inconvenient.
But it would be a tragedy to lose a young person because warning signs were missed, or because sports communities were not prepared to respond to a cardiac emergency.
Let's work together to keep their hearts in the game.
This concludes this training module. Congratulations, and thank you for learning more about sudden cardiac arrest prevention so you can protect young hearts. For more information, please visit CoachSafely.org.